Well, for this next installment, I would like to talk about the next group that obviously hates Ron Paul, and the first group being the liberals. The second group, the more problematic group as far as him ever getting the nomination is concerned, are conservatives. Uh, Most especially the neoconservatives, who, as a voting bloc, aren't that big, but in terms of party elite and influence, they are extremely important. And then also, even your just run of the mill average conservative is not going to like or think very highly of Ron Paul. The neoconservatives obviously are explicitly and entirely warmongering butchers. Uh, they value war for different reasons, some of them for pragmatic reasons, others for almost religious evil reasons. I mean, some of them view it as a public policy thing. It's just good. Some of them are Keynesians and think it's just good for the economy. And others, I do think deep down, just love war. They love that martial spirit. They like to. They don't like to fight themselves. They don't like to face death, get shot at, or anything like that, or their kids. But they like watching tanks on TV and whatever. And it's like watching a football game, only real, and it's vicarious pleasure. Anyway, obviously, Ron Paul is outspoken against all that. They hate him for it, either because they sincerely believe that it is suicidal, which is probably true for some of them, or they just like that they're eating out of the public trough and he's threatening to kick that over, especially when it comes to the empire. Um, They've already attacked him a few times. All attack. I mean, I read one by Podhoretz, I think, basically said he was basically another Hitler, anti-Semite, which is interesting since his ideological mentors are Mises and Rothbard and Ayn Rand, and I mean they're all Jews, maybe agnostic Jews, but Jews nonetheless. I guess they can make it out. I guess one of his first influences was Hans Senholz, and since I guess he was actually a Luftwaffe pilot, I guess you could. I guess we'll have to wait until that gets dragged up. I guess it probably will eventually. Um, so Ron Paul is anathema to these people. He is their antimatter. The differences between him and them is greater than the differences between liberals, I would say, because at least liberals hypothetically have an overlap. The neoconservatives aren't even ostensibly minarchists at all. They don't believe in small government, and they're not libertarian. At least the vast majority of them are. Uh, and so there's no overlap at all. Now, like I said, neoconservatives aren't that much of the electorate, but regular Republican voters tend to be nationalists. They tend to want to have their idea of a good speech. It has a Pledge of Allegiance, it has a flag, it has the national anthem. You put your hand over your heart, you salute the troops, and they salute you back, and it's a very martial, disgusting display of vicarious machismoism. And it's also extremely anti-intellectual as far as that goes. It's a little bit better when it comes to things like domestic policy, but uh, because of that, anybody who even suggests like maybe closing one base, that's like pooping on the parade. You don't want to hear it. Any suggestion that the policies of the government may be misled, which is, I mean, the government has so many thousands of policies, it's absurd to assume that they're all rational and they're all in the best interest of America. Yet to even question one is to basically say you hate this country. And of course there's the whole conflating government with country, which is rampant. I think the conservatives are more guilty of it, although the liberals do it also. They don't think that they do it, but they do. Uh, I tend to see that most Republican primary voters are people who do not have a very consistent ideology, and they do not pick their political positions based on any kind of thoughtful examination of reality, and they don't pick their candidates that way either. Your average Republican primary voter, caucus voter, or pollster, person who works in the political process, do not what they do is they look at the candidates and they just have their own ideas of political gamesmanship and which ones look the most presidential, which ones uh, have the right kind of rhetoric that gives them the warmest, fuzziest feeling, and that's who they pick. If you listen to these interviews, like the Ames straw poll or a debate, uh, usually they'll go and they'll ask people who are there, who are you here to support? And obviously, they'll talk to Ron Paul supporters. He's not ignored, but a Ron Paul supporter is going to say, he's against the wars, they're against the Fed, they like his policy on the T. I mean, very specific, and they're going to indicate a hint of an ideological consistent philosophy, even though it may be different. I mean, there are different reasons for supporting Ron Paul. Not all of his supporters are the same. That's true. But someone who says they're looking at Bachmann, it's just going to be, I like the way she looks, I like the way she talks, I like her attitude, or she's got the right kind of message. But what's her message is just a whole bunch of platitudes. I shouldn't single out Bachmann because, with the exception of Paul, and yes, also Gary Johnson, that's it. That's all they're looking for, And some of them are more culture warriors, and they're going to look at someone like Santorum, and when he just berails Obama and baby killing, they're just going to eat that right up. Even though when he was in the Senate, did he ever abolish abortion? No. If they ever abolished abortion, then they wouldn't be able to campaign on it, so they're never going to. Just like if there was ever a way to actually make blacks rich, the Democrats would never ever do it because then they wouldn't have the welfare vote. But anyway, your average Republican primary voter is not going to care anything about fiscal policy or any kind of philosophy. They just want that rhetorical figurehead, and Ron Paul does not fill that very well. Now, there are a few, like there are some honest liberals who will support Ron Paul. There are some Republican primary voters who have consistent minarchist and, by extension, libertarian leanings, who do look at the candidates and decide based on that who to support. And those people are all for Ron Paul. Those people are pretty few and far between. They're out there. They do exist. I don't know how much of a force they are. I'm going to say that they're definitely a minority, although I guess it depends where. Among the Tea Party is obviously a mixed bag, and while there's good small government stuff in there, of which Ron Paul is undoubtedly the greatest champion, there's so much pro-war nationalism in that, and there's just no getting around the fact that people who are up into that, into waving the flag and having the parades and all that, they cannot rationally. I mean, Ron Paul says he's strong on defense, and he does, and he's the only one who's actually a veteran. I mean, not that he was a frontline troop, but that's more than any of the other ones. But he also gets the most support from the military. It's fairly well known. It's even been fact checked by third-party organizations who attest he's more popular with active duty than anybody else, and actually everybody else put together. That doesn't matter. You just want to chant USA and feel good about yourself. I mean, it'd be like someone watching a football game who's all, like, yeah, I'm the man, and you just tell them, you're not actually on the team, you're just watching. You're correct, but they're just going to get pissy and moany and think you're an asshole for pointing that out. And that's the way most conservatives are going to feel about Ron Paul. Again, primary process, small number of voters, so we'll see. I do think if he actually were to get the nomination, they'd still vote for him because, with the exception of the most rabid neocons, they're going to like him over Obama. So, yes, conservatives, especially social conservatives and neoconservatives, which is a lot of the conservatives out there, and most of the Republican Party, hate Ron Paul. So.